The movie starts with a story that takes place presumably somewhere in Eastern Europe near the beginning of the century and is spoken in Yiddish. The first 5 or 10 minutes of the movie doesn't really have any direct relationship to the rest of the movie, the rest of the story that follows.
I don't know why, it just seemed like starting the movie with a little Yiddish folktale would be somehow an appropriate introduction for the movie. But we didn't know any suitable Yiddish folktales, so we just kind of made one up. Actually, it's kind of like Fargo. We thought it would be fun to do a true story, but we didn't know any suitable true stories, so we made one up.
Reitel Groschka wäre stoit. Ist gestorben schon mit 3 Jahren zurück. Sie hat es mir allein erzählt. Bei ihr ist gewähnt die Schive euch.
It's kind of like the cartoon that begins the movie before the feature presentation began.
Which sadly they don't do anymore. So instead of the cartoon, we have Fleivish Finkel.
I don't necessarily want to comment on what the guys mean by it, but it creates an interesting set of resonances with the rest of the story.
Burgsche Patrani von Aldo Space.
It's okay.
It's about a Jewish physics professor in 1967 who's dealing with his life falling apart all around him, finding a kind of faith again, and doing the best he can.
I don't know which end is up. I'm not even sure how to react. I'm too confused.
The movie is about a man searching for answers.
And what was my life before? Not what I thought it was. So what does it all mean? What is Hashem trying to tell me?
It's all about philosophy of the world, and it's what they believe and how they view the world and the human condition.
I've had quite a bit of tsuris lately. Marital problems, professional, you name it. But you don't have to tell Marshak that. Just tell him I need help.
It takes place in an unnamed Midwestern city, and obviously we're from the Midwest, and it's reminiscent of our childhoods.
It's not necessarily an autobiographical story. I think it's a story that's told, from the perspective of the place that they knew when they were growing up.
A long time ago we had an idea. I think we were thinking about it as a short movie about a bar mitzvah boy who goes in and sees an aged rabbi after his bar mitzvah. It was sort of very loosely based on a rabbi that we knew when we were kids.
Yeah, there was a rabbi when we were growing up who was the aged kind of
sage.
He's the sage. He said nothing but had a lot of charisma.
That small kind of idea somehow developed into this movie, which obviously has that in it, but is quite different.
I think actually when we started writing it, we thought it would be a kind of a two-part story about the kid and his father, but in the course of writing, the adult part became more what the story was about. Maybe it's just there were more ways to beleaguer the adult. But the kid's stoned bar mitzvah is still the climax of the movie, and he is the one who gets to see Rabbi Marshak, the guy who kind of has the secret to the riddle.
Be a good boy.
The character that Michael plays in the movie is made up, but it's based on characters that we knew, people that we were familiar with growing up, because he's an academic and my parents were both academics professionally. He's a middle-aged Jewish father. So in that sense, he wasn't an unfamiliar character.
Mr. Brandt keeps mowing part of our lawn.
Does that matter?
I think he takes the life that's around him for granted.
It's just odd.
But he doesn't realize that until these things start to slip away, where the audience starts to find him as just a guy going about his business, thinking his life is one particular way. And then as things start to happen during the story, he finds that life isn't what he expected it to be.
Everything that I thought was one way turns out to be another.
The plot, such as it is in the movie, there isn't really much of one. It's more about the common misfortunes that befall this sort of middle-aged father during the course of the movie. There's nothing terribly dramatic, and most of them are things that are familiar to lots of people.
Did you talk to Cy?
Cy Abelman, that's right, he called, but
You didn't talk to him?
No.
The one that starts the movie is his wife telling him that she's been having an affair with another guy that he knows, a colleague of his at the university. That's essentially the triangle in the movie.
It's a triangle, but it's a Jewish triangle.
I think it's time that we start talking about a divorce. When we meet Judith, she is having an intimate relationship with Cy Abelman.
Cy Abelman?
And she presents this news to Larry in, I think, a very civilized manner. This is not some flashy fling, Larry. This is not about whoopsie-doopsie.
Cy Abelman?
Larry, he's not ambitious enough, he's not enough of a macher, as they say in Yiddish, meaning an achiever, an important person. He's a nice guy, he's a likable guy, but he's not an important person, he's not a serious man.
Do you drink wine? Because this is an incredible bottle. This is not Mogan David, Larry. This is a wine.
Larry is serious, but not about the right things. Larry's very serious about physics. Who wants to be married to that?
The uncertainty principle. It proves we can't ever really know what's going on.
So, strangely, she falls for me, somebody who's significantly older, not exactly movie star handsome, but in some sense, a bigger deal than Larry is.
Did you follow that?
Of course. Except that I know what's going on.
Fred is not your usual movie homewrecker.
Remember when we were talking to Mos Def about Lady Killers at one point, we said we'd hired Damon Wayans, and he said, oh yeah, he's the sex guy.
Yeah, Fred's the sex guy.
I fucked your wife, Larry. I seriously fucked her.
Everybody in the family has an agenda. The wife wants the sex guy. Aaron's character wants to get patent records. His sister wants to get a nose job.
Nobody in this house is getting a nose job. You got that?
Sarah is very humiliated of her family. That's why she's never home. She's always at the hole. She has no tolerance for them.
Where are you going?
I'm going to the hole.
What? 5 o'clock?
We're stopping at Lori Kipperstein's house so I can wash my hair.
Hi, Mr. Gopnik.
But you can't wash it here?
Uncle Arthur's in the bathroom.
I'll be out in a minute.
Arthur's got a sebaceous cyst on the back of his neck that he's always guarding. It's always there. It's like this little monster. It's like the ugliness of the world has attached himself to the back of his neck, and he's always sucking it out with this evacuator. It's just part of his life.
I've read like synopses on the internet, and some people say that Judith divorces Larry because of Arthur, who won't move out. But I don't know. You could see it lots of different ways.
Any luck looking for an apartment? I've found there to be a great love between the two of them.
No.
Although there's a tremendous, I think, animosity as well. Richard and I spoke briefly about what we thought the background of these characters might be. That he's older than I am, that perhaps he was always the more intelligent of the two of ours, but a little socially inept. And Arthur's in a turning point in his life as well, trying to decide, realize why his life has gone the way it's gone.
Look, tell Gopnik, Arthur Gopnik, he's breaking the law. We're not arresting him now, but next time we will. Gambling is against the law in this state. That's just the way it is.
The things that go on behind what we actually see in Uncle Arthur's life, the imagination can only fill in. You hear about the poker game and what I'm doing, but you gotta fill it in. The mentaculous, you get a glimpse of it, but what could this book really be? And you never see my cyst. You see me slurping away at it, but you never see it. These guys leave it up to the audience. Joel and Ethan, they present it, and you get to think about it.
The North Dakota. Well.
The majority of the time I'm at home, I'm either being beat up by my sister or studying for my bar mitzvah.
You little brat fucker! You snuck $20 out of my drawer!
Studying Torah, asshole.
You little brat!
It does kind of remind me of my when I have my bar mitzvah. But yeah, I wasn't high at my bar mitzvah.
Danny Gopnik, the sisterhood makes a gift to you of this Kiddush cup, so that you will remember this blessed day on the next Shabbos.
Yeah, it's fun. This is probably the most fun scene that we've done.
Roger Deakins had used these, they're called swing and tilt lenses that have a kind of weird, it's not a depth of field thing, it's just the focal plane is just skewed. It gives a weird soft effect to everything in the frame except one almost arbitrary plane. We used it for the two stone scenes in the movie. One scene where Michael Stuhlbarg gets to go next door and smoke marijuana with his mysterious neighbor, and the kid's bar mitzvah that ends the movie.
I came in to help find the locations and to secure the locations for the film, and it just so happened they approached me about doing a small scene as a Torah hoister, a Torah lifter, and worked out because I had some experience. I had done it before.
Ready and action.
Tyson just looked like he would fit into the shul there.
It's a very nerve-wracking job because in the Jewish religion, if you watch a Torah fall during a ceremony, then you're obliged to fast for 30 days. So there's that added pressure of not only performing and lifting and all that, but the Jewish obligation of making sure that that Torah is secure. Plus, the Torah that Keith picked out for our filming happens to be one of the heavier ones I've come across. Quite a lift, but it's all a good time.
That is part of the service. At a certain point, a guy called up from the congregation called the Golel has to lift up the Torah and kind of display it to the congregation. And, you know, they're heavy.
The cantor is a real cantor, and you know, those gentlemen that are around there have the experience, and they know the ins, they know the outs. So it adds that authenticity to the whole thing.
To a certain extent, the people that we used in those scenes are members of the Jewish community who do that in real life, what we were asking them to do in the movie. We were trying to involve the community as much as possible.
The whole incongruity of Jews in the Midwest, Jews on the plains, is just odd, and that incongruity is something that we kind of wanted to get across too. It's its own strange subculture.
People from the synagogue would read the script and find it very amusing. Some of the sort of aspects of Jewish arcana which are sort of involved in the story, which is unusual to them, I think, to see in a movie, and it's fun. A lot of the things we thought people would be quite uptight about, I have to say, they were very relaxed about in, I think, a healthy and interesting way.
Give me that fucker.
This kid is a 13-year-old kid, and he gets high right before his bar mitzvah, which we disclosed to everybody.
Yeah, everybody knew, you know, the synagogue we shot in, the religious leaders that we were sort of involving in the production, and they all had a good perspective and sense of humor about it.
People were really supportive, in the Jewish community especially. But, you know, occasionally people would ask, you're not making fun of the Jews, are you? There's this really deep Jewish thing where, you know, is this good for the Jews or bad for the Jews? Some people were kind of...
On the one hand, they're very enthusiastic, they're very excited about something, like any group is going to be, that you know, you're looking at them specifically as in a movie, and everybody's interested in that. And on the other hand, right, it's this, but wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Amen.
Amen.
I think it's a very, from our point of view, very affectionate look at it.
It's not like we would laugh at anybody.
Yeah. No.
They'd really genuinely like movie making and storytelling. It's so important to be able to discuss these things. And so for them, you get the feeling that it's pleasurable.
Sometimes when they're rolling, I stop myself and I'm like, whoa, I'm shooting a movie right now, and the Coen brothers are around the corner, and Roger Deakins is here. And so I come into this with so much respect for them already, and, you know, as every day goes by, they just impress me even more.
What are we doing? This just a momentary up, and then go to get. Am I going to knock? Yeah. Down, you know, and then no, I'm not going to.
They're everything you'd expect them to be: smart, gentle, cerebral, and quite zen on the set as well. They seem to not just play off each other well, but complement each other in terms of their thoughts about what things are. And as they treat each other with respect, they treat their fellow workers with respect. And you can't ask for more than that.
That's it. That's the one you want to go for. And yeah, give it a good bend like that.
I guess you can chalk this up to being Midwestern, but they're people. They really are. They are good folk, real mensches, and that's the word to use. Yeah, it's a very menschy set. Changing shoelaces so they match. The work she does is outrageous. Okay. And I'm glad I could be on camera to say that now both shoelaces match.
You have the huge advantage of really, quite literally, we're able to work with the best people in the movie business. We're just very lucky that way.
Young Marshak? When you're making a movie about a Jewish community in 1967 where not much happens and Fred Melamed is the sex guy, they don't give you a lot of money, and it was just great that it was the A-Team.
It makes the movies what they are.
The first movie I did with Joel and Ethan was Fargo. I was the location manager on Fargo. And because I'm from here and I met them when they came here to do that movie, and was very fortunate to get connected up with them and have been fortunate enough to be there ever since. It's a very incredibly talented group of people.
So your rehearsal?
And I think we've all developed a certain trust and shorthand over the course of the years so that it makes it a lot easier to be efficient in the ways that you want to be.
They all trust each other so completely, and then Roger and Joel and Ethan, there's so much support and absolute respect for each other that everyone has amazing confidence to do what they do best.
What does this movie mean? It's a movie about what does it all mean. That's really what it is.
I've tried to be a serious man.
If you're of a mind to get a meaning from life, then you'll find a meaning in it. But it doesn't have a meaning that we all figure out at the end. Bad things happen, good things happen, a lot of them unexplained.
Actions have consequences.
Yes, often.
No, always. Actions always have consequences. In this office, actions have consequences.
Yes, sir.
Not just physics, morally.
There's a great quote at the beginning of the script, a Rashi quote, which says, "Receive with simplicity all that happens to you." It's a great sort of mantra to keep in mind in terms of how we live our lives and the things that happen to us that we have no control over, how we go about our lives when bad things happen to good people, and how they go about trying to accept it and move forward.
1967. Behind the scenes.
It's a very specific time and a very specific place. People associate the 60s with the summer of love and the rock and roll movement, and there is a bit of that with the music in this movie, but it really doesn't happen in this region until like 2 years later. If this movie took place in 1969, it would have a completely different look.
It's a great period, 1967, in the Midwest. All new things are developing, new styles, new designs.
Following this?
There's very little break in a man's pair of pants. That's the way they wore them in the 60s.
This part is exciting.
It's so funny. It's like a mantra for all the extras. They're like, pull up your pants, tuck in your shirt.
Stop!
She keeps doing that.
What's going on?
The first fitting I didn't really enjoy too much because I'm, the pants way up high and just like all the kind of, not really formal, but I guess just nice clothes.
What's going on?
Nothing.
It was still a time where people actually took time to prepare and present themselves to the public.
You kind of almost mold into your part when you get into costume and hair and makeup. It helps you so much. And it's certainly been a blast just traveling back to the 60s.
We're eating already?
Sarah's going out.
Ow, cut it out.
What's going on?
All the women in the movie, every extra has an undergarment on. Every single one. Because all the blouses have darts in them. So if you don't have the right bra on, the shirts don't fit the right way. And it does make a huge difference. And people are always like, you're not gonna see the undergarment. Why do I have to wear it? And it's like, well, it's making it fit differently.
I did a lot of research on Judaism and Minneapolis Jews and suburbs of Jews, everything that the script called for. And I gathered, I make a big fat book. We just started scouting, and I brought my book with me, and in the front seat of the car, what about this, what about that? And they'd be, yeah, I like it, maybe not, yeah. And some things are in the script that you have to do, like the cyst sucker, you have to come up with that, and the mentaculus. They write things out so specifically that it does make my job easier, rather than have a worldwide search of something. I know what it is, and I have to zero in on it from there.
What are you doing?
Working on the mentaculus.
We sort of looked around and drove around, Jess and I, and sort of said, it's all here. It's all in Minneapolis. And we were able to find everything in the Twin Cities, in St. Paul and in Minneapolis and a couple of the small suburbs around. So it really worked out nicely.
We were looking at another temple that was probably built in the 30s. We thought that was it until we decided, hey, wait a minute, let's go look at this other temple, which was built, I think, in the mid-60s. And we got there and we knew right away that was the place. It was just post-war, no big arched windows, red carpet, and wood-driven. From then on, we decided to go post-war with the whole look of this movie.
Cut on rehearsal.
Which was great for me. I got to bring in a lot more color, and visually it would be a lot better movie because of it.
Aside from a few really just cosmetic changes, we walked in and we shot it pretty much the way it was.
That was a synagogue that was actually fairly close to where we grew up, B'nai Abraham, when we were kids, now called B'nai Emmet.
We had a big setup. Obviously, you could see Roger and his team had a lot of lights and, huge cranes and things like that. So we needed about a week of setting up for a 4-day shoot. We waited till the Jewish holidays were over and then kind of moved in and started to set up. It's been a great reception. The congregants of the synagogue are very excited about it too, so it was good.
The sisterhood makes a gift to you of this Kiddush cup. Now you will go and see Rabbi Marshak.
The kind of set piece, the pièce de résistance, was the set of the sage, the rabbi at the end, Rabbi Marshak, where we wanted him to feel kind of like a wizard in his musty old lair. That involved accumulating huge amounts of Judaica and Hebraica and weird animal parts and other things that a wizard might have.
These are the members of the airplane.
This is an elementary school, so this was 3 classrooms put together. So we opened up the walls in between them and made it into one big one so we could get back and shoot, 20, 30 desks. It's got great views out the windows, which we're going to use. Put a great blackboard up, turned it into a Hebrew school, Hebrew alphabet, and makes a great classroom. This is how to apply this tefillin, which is you don't see every day, but you see it here. This school is abandoned, so there's nobody here right now, so we sort of took run of it. We're using this gym as a pseudo stage for when they run out of time with the kids. They're going to come in and knock off all of these things. So this is Dr. Sussman and his wife's bedroom that you'll see. And this is the Jolly Roger where Larry has to go live. He's joined by Uncle Arthur when he gets kicked out of his house. This is their luxurious motel here, and that's more of the block construction. His office is blocked, the Hebrew school is blocked. This is another block room that he has to go live in. These are some components that we're getting ready to put in this little sci-fi Buck Rogers set that little Danny is watching on the TV. So these are, we're starting to fit these into, if you turn around over here, this set, which is going to be, there's going to be a pedestal here with a big brain and some liquid pulsating that they're going to start off, have a tight shot on, and then pull back, and you can see that Danny's watching a sci-fi thing, a Buck Rogers type of thing. So there'll be a big shaft of light through here, and that's what's going on.
What you see behind me is the brain, which is a prop for a movie within the movie that is going to be sitting there and pulsing. It's like an old 50s schlock horror movie where the evil brain tells everybody what to do. This is the brain that I sculpted. I made a plywood armature up and then laid the clay on and built up clay until we had a shape that we liked. And then sealed it up. And then I poured plaster around it to make this mold. So then we filled this with silicone, and that side with silicone, close it up, and we put it on this contraption over here, which spins. So we kept it rolling while the silicone cured, so you get a nice even coating of silicone inside the mold, which gives us this guy here. It's a funky black and white movie, and schlockier the better.
Brat fucker! Gonna get it! Brat! Gonna get it! Fucker!
What's going on?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Jess came in and did a sort of complete transformation of the neighborhood just in terms of how he brought it back into the 60s with all of the details that he sort of changed on the houses and in the yards.
We did a lot of clearing, a lot of landscaping, put chimneys on each house, and re-side the houses and paint the houses and put the fake brick, put TV antennas on them.
Michael, when you go for the prong, instead of going for the one that's off to your left, go for the one that's to your right, which is more in the center of the frame. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that's it.
Back then, people had one car, and all the houses now have big two-car driveways, two-car garages, so we closed down the garages to a one-car garage with a one-car driveway, and that really shocked the back. So we took about 8 to 10 houses and gave them a facelift.
It doesn't make sense. Either he left the money or he didn't.
Please, accept the mystery.
Creating that neighborhood, it remains, as we sit here, an ongoing process. It was a question of looking for a neighborhood with as little old-growth trees as possible. We figured we could remove digitally in the computer some of those trees.
What was amazing about the neighborhood in Bloomington, where most of the exteriors of the neighborhood took place, was that a few years ago they had been hit by a windstorm that knocked out a lot of the trees and did some damage to the neighborhood. So for us, it helped sell the fact that this is a new suburban neighborhood in the 60s, and back then people were just planting trees because they were new homes.
Most of these neighborhoods were built on cornfields, and that's part of the sense of what I think Joel and Ethan were looking for, is the sense of prairie settlement almost in this suburban life at that time.
The cooperation and the level of support that we got from the town and from the neighbors was critical, and it's what made it what it was.
It was never complete until you get the vehicles in there, and then it was like, oh yeah, okay.
Doing a movie like this, cars are the easiest way to bring the feeling of the neighborhoods and the exteriors into the period, because it's the detail which reads most immediately and which sort of conveys the period most immediately.
They said to look for any car that isn't red, isn't white, and no big fins, and it had to be in the 60s, and nothing before 60 because it just looks too period. And the cars in the 60s were kind of more racy looking and more just what they wanted. I picked the cars out and we picked the colors out, but Joel and Ethan had to just make the final decision on what color so it would match what he liked.
All over the country, you find a lot of guys who like to collect old cars, and a lot of times the owners of these cars, they're very particular about them. I mean, I'm sure there's some of these cars that have never been driven in the rain.
What do we see, guys?
First thing we want to do is put dust all over them and make them look like they've been driven through the rain and the dirt.
All right, well, we'll set up the camera and then see.
I actually picked Sally's car first. It was a Coupe de Ville. And we had to paint it and get it ready, and then we had to find a match to it. They do a match interior, because what the Coen brothers do is they, not to waste time, they have 2 cars, one for interior and one exterior, so they can finish one and boom, right go to the next one. So it saves a lot of time and doesn't waste any film time. Larry's car is a Coronet. It's just a plain 66, everyday looking car.
We have 4 Larry cars. One's a driver, one is just for interior work, and then 2 are crash cars. This is an interior car that's set up for towing. That'll just be the interior shots on there. We took the bumper off and we put our own steel on here to attach the tow bar. What they're doing on this show is they're going to mount the camera on a rig and they'll set their angles for Larry. They've taken all the tinted windshields out and they're putting clear windshields in, and that's for Roger to get a clean shot. He can then control all the color. We also have a crash coming up.
You little bastard! You gonna send your mother next?
Larry's driving and he gets a car in front of him and he gets rear-ended. And, so we had to beef up the cars, beef up the bumpers.
I want to see you!
This is to make sure that this car doesn't go diving underneath the Dodge. But they're all pretty beefy cars. All Detroit iron are great.
I've just been in a terrible auto accident.
Gar was going to get this truck for a while, but then, no, so he got this station wagon.
Good afternoon.
That was a Rambler classic. It just can't seem to fit the character because he was just the deer on top of the old car, it just seemed to fit really good.
Been hunting?
Samsky, she had the red Mustang.
She was kind of a foxy lady, and I thought she needed a Mustang. So we got to go with it first, but then Joel and Ethan thought, nah. Yeah, I showed my picture of red when they loved it.
Mr. Gopnik.
Oh, hello, Mrs. Samsky.
She was a spicy character, so she had to have something spicy.
It's cooler.
Oh, okay.
Something you try and do is employ the owners as extras in the movie and let them drive the cars themselves. They tend to be very proprietary about their vehicles.
I think it makes it look more real. To have somebody who knows nothing about the business to actually get involved, which is really exciting for them because they get to be part of the movie, and it's really a nice feel for those people.
Did I tell you I had a car accident the same time Cy had his? Is Hashem trying to tell me that Cy Abelman is me?
There's a tornado at the end of the movie, which is a combination of on-set effects and digital effects.
There's a tornado warning from the Weather Service.
Mr. Turchik has decided to move us into the basement of the synagogue.
The on-set stuff was just kind of basically blowing the set with these huge fans, ritters that, you know, just kind of give you a lot of foreground wind action. But the background, the actual tornado itself, is something that's just going to be created in the computer. There's no tornado rental facility, unfortunately.
It was awesome. They had these 10-foot fans like circling around the set. They'd turn them on and everyone's yarmulkes would fly about in the air.
The special effects team did a great job of creating a lot of wind.
That fucking flag's gonna rip right off the flagpole!
Then we got period buses in there. It was not the easiest thing getting period buses. I always wanted to do a movie with a yellow school bus. To me, it's the most visual thing in the world. With a yellow school bus with Hebrew writing, it was like double mitzvah for me. So we staged a few of those out there, and I think it's gonna turn out great.
Hey! Bagel!